Coming to you from June's All Day on South Congress in Austin today. It's January 2025, so we thought it'd be a good chance to kind of check in and give you an update on the Austin housing market, all the things we saw in 2024, and what we expect for 2025. Okay, so let me tell you the story of 2024 in Austin real estate. We started out the year a year ago in January with super optimistic expectations for the year ahead. We were coming right off of a 2023 that was very slow compared to what we were used to during the pandemic. We were seeing property values kind of start to drop, buyer demand drop. But then as we looked ahead to 2024, the Fed was predicting 6 interest rate drops last year. We knew there was a lot of pent-up demand for people who hadn't moved in 2023 and probably still needed to. So we just really expected those two things to come together and produce a really strong market for Austin in 2024. So that's the way we started. Pretty optimistic in the spring. There was your typical cyclical patterns of buyers coming out because, school's ending and they want to find a house before summer, their kids moved. We always see an uptick in the spring. So we started to see that at the beginning of last year, and it felt very hopeful. But time kept passing and the Fed kept not dropping rates. So by late spring, early summer, we started to see that maybe 2024 wasn't quite what we thought it was going to be. And even though there were pockets of town where buyer demand was still decent, and if you have a turnkey house and it's priced well in a iconic Austin area, it's still going to sell fairly quickly. But overall, everything was a lot more stagnant last year than we thought it would be. And then come summertime, these reports started coming out that were being spread all over the place about how there were tech layoffs in Austin and a lot of people were moving out of Austin, that the boom had kind of ended and now people were leaving. And so it just seemed like there was a lot of bad news coming in at once. We also started hearing that the Fed may not drop rates at all after having predicted 6 rate drops in January. So things sort of changed mid-year last year, and then we really just saw a sharp decline for the rest of 2024. Okay, so second half of the year in our real estate cycle is always slower than the first half of the year. So it was slower last year, but that typical seasonal slowness was combined with the fact that it was a presidential election. And during presidential election years, very few people feel like moving. So historically, if you look back at all the falls when we had a presidential election, things really do slow down a lot for housing. And this year was definitely no exception. So we saw a lot of crickets. Heard a lot of crickets. It was crickets everywhere in the fall last year. Not a lot of buyer traffic, quieter open houses, things like that. It was a difficult time to sell houses. We also have seen prices decline a little bit. I would say we wrapped up 2024 probably about 20% on average under the values that we hit at the peaks during the pandemic. So, different pockets are different. I can give you more specifics on your particular neighborhood, but kind of just as a whole in the Austin greater metro area, that's about what we were seeing. Okay, so now that we have closed out the calendar year of 2024, Austin Board of Realtors has put out their data. So now we're able to look at how 2024 performed as a whole in comparison to years previous. As it turns out, we came in well under volume as compared to 2023. So 2023 was a quiet year for Austin, and then 2024 actually closed at least around 10% under 2023. So that's where we closed. Fannie Mae also came out with a report that overall nationally, 2024 was the slowest market we've seen in about 30 years nationally. So it wasn't just Austin. I think Austin got particularly hit hard because we boomed so much during the pandemic that it felt like a bigger slowdown, but it was everywhere that we just saw a lot of slowness for the year. All right, so let's talk about 2025 and what's to come. New year always brings new optimism, but I'm also seeing truly a lot of increased buyer demand, a lot more phone calls, a lot more busy open houses, a lot more buyer traffic. So people are definitely starting to get out there, and it's early for that. It's still January. We were thinking and hoping that may be the case this year because typically the spring after a presidential election, things open up quickly. but we just didn't know. So we'll see. And the other thing we don't know yet is whether all these people who are looking at houses are actually going to decide they want to take the bait, jump in, and contract. So mortgage rates are still hovering 6-7%. They're predicting for them to stay pretty close to that, which feels high for 2025. What we do know is that there are a lot of people who've been waiting a long time now to move. I think when interest rates peaked so quickly after the pandemic, a lot of people said, I'm going to hold off and wait for rates to drop. And now it seems like they're not dropping anytime soon. There's not really a prediction for a huge free fall this year. Some economists are saying we may hit like a 5% interest rate this year, but it's still far from where we were during the pandemic, and it's all still a maybe. So the biggest question right now is whether all those people who've been waiting for a long time will decide to take the plunge and actually jump in this year and just say, this is the way it's going to be. I'm just going to move on with it and then refinance later, or if they'll continue to wait. So that will remain to be seen. So that's my thoughts on 2024 and looking into 2025. If you have any questions about what I've said, or if you'd like to talk about your specific situation and what might work best for you, our team is right here, a phone call or a text away. So whether you work with me or Josh or Crystal, give us a call. We're happy to chat about what we're seeing and love to help you anytime. Thanks for watching.